game, relations with ourselves, the world around us, and the greater universe, finding our way back home.
Greetings and welcome again to another talk on the ABE communication, specifically on the reality game. And we're coming to the close of the book, and these are communications from the final session, clarifying the way back home. And this is perhaps the penultimate session on the reality game book. Now, Abe has been talking about the way back home and trying to describe it about coming back to ourselves. And Abe is talking about how we need to clarify our perceptions and to trust more in ourselves and to bring things back instead of always outsourcing and putting things outside of ourselves. And that also means about cutting out the middle person. We often give away our responsibility for our thoughts, our perceptions, our ideas to something in the middle, a person or institution that gives us that information. And Abe is saying we need to find that directly within ourselves, a kind of direct connection to our own sense of self, sense of reality, sense of information. So again, what they're saying is that we have to really trust in our own experience and our own senses from our experience. So here Abe says, quote, "You do not need the middleman anymore. You have and are evolving to have this direct experience, this direct connection. If you so allow, you do not need the filter as such." So it's interesting that Abe says you're evolving towards this also. We have it, but we're also evolving towards it to have it more. And what are we evolving towards? The ability to have a direct connection with the greater unified consciousness or the greater connection to source, basically a connection to something beyond the material world. And we can perceive our relation with reality more directly instead of just giving it to a material middle man or middle institution to describe that for us. And part of that is to trusting the allowing. And Abe is saying, well, the allowance is also kind of unconditional. It's not something that we put filters onto it because we gain filters from our experience of the material world, and we're conditioned by the material world to put filters on everything. So it's very hard to receive something pure and direct because we filter it through our conditioning. So we have to allow a kind of more direct, authentic relationship. And Abe, at this point, starts to equate allowance with love. Now, not love as it's the emotional side of love that's depicted in our human societies and the romantic notion of love, but love as an unconditional flowing energy, a frequency. And this is important in the book because Abe starts to make that correlation between allowance is what we perhaps can perceive as an unconditional love. Abe says here, it's a larger quote, "What does love truly feel like for you? It is expansive, unconstricted. It opens you up. Is this not so? For you see, the word love has been overcomplicated, overcompensated. For the void you do so feel within. That you feel you must continuously fill. But you see, this very thing is love, is allowance, is space, and should not be susceptible to your human conditions." So there Abe is saying that we feel a void within ourselves, some kind of empty space, and we overcompensate for that lack inside of us by clinging on to our conditionings of love, emotional love, dynamic love, entertaining love. But really, we shouldn't be worried about filling this space because there's never a void. And really, love is about this allowance of this home frequency. And the more that we attach to that allowance, the more we feel that frequency of love, that kind of unconditional flow. And Abe says that, we should not think that love has to be given to us from outside or told to us what it is. So many times we go around chasing our tails, trying to find love as it's depicted to us, as it's depicted in our cultures, in our movies, or whatever. Another quote here, Abe says, it is truly just an allowance of being. It is just so that as humans you call it love, with much allowance and light, Abe. Now, that's significant because Abe, often when they sign off their messages, they have said love and light, Abe. Now, love and light can be a phrase which has been overused. It becomes a cliche when it's overused in certain New Age contexts. And everyone goes, yeah, love and light, But Abe was using it, I feel, to get to a point where they switch it over. Because now they say in allowance and light. So it makes us realize that the love that they talked about was not the love of, oh, we love you type of love that we tend to emotionalize through human conditioning, but it was the love of the home frequency, which is allowance. And then from this point onwards, they start to bring in allowance more, and they sign off their messages in allowance and light. And then later on, the further messages, they just sign off in allowance or in continued allowance. So you see how they shift through these stages. At first, they connect with, the communication connects with a phrase that we as humans are very familiar with in love and light. And then by that, they go to allowance on light, and then in allowance of ourselves. So they move us through these steps. And that's why the next set of communications, which I'm preparing to release for next year, centers around the notion of allowance and further goes into the exploration of this allowance. But this is the first point where they start to bring in this switch between love is actually unconditional form of allowance, which is like a home frequency. And we can understand that more if we don't get tangled up in the material side of life, or not an extremity of one or the other, not just material life or not just the spiritual life. It's an interwoven tapestry of this combination. And Abe says here that they're telling us that the material component cannot exist without the energetic immaterial component. Abe says, quote, for someone purely focused on materiality is but half the picture. And someone focused purely on spirituality is too. You see, it is always about the dance. That is what makes your very being so treasurable, so diverse, so splendid. It's this dance between the material and immaterial aspects of reality, because the energetics work through both. We don't need to go off into some kind of run or escape from the world trying to be just pure spiritual, because we have to exist in the world, but we combine both aspects, the material with the immaterial, and allowance is a part of that flow between them both. And if we are more accustomed to that authentic allowance, then we stop looking in the wrong places for ourselves. Like that famous joke about the drunk in the street looking for the keys under the street light. And when he gets asked by friends, where did you drop your keys? He says, well, over there in the dark, not here. But he was looking here because there's more light. So it's often those comfort zones that we prefer to look for things within, and often they're in the material aspects. And Abe says, quote, "What if it finally finds you?" They're talking about, something truthful. What if it finally finds you and you but realize was never amiss, just drowned out by all the noise, by all the activity of your being, of your trying to find something? What if something precious in life, some form of truth, some form of direct experience, was trying to find you, but you were in the noise, you were engaged in so much activity trying to find it or trying to find something, you missed it when you finally encountered it. So it's about us not trying to overcomplicate things, run around chasing our tails because we might miss what is exactly in front of our nose. So this finding the way back home for Abe is trying to strip away all these extremities, all these extra overcoats that we've placed in ourselves, to try to simplify things and get back to ourselves and cut out the noise and get more into the unconditional flow that is more natural to our home resonance. And that natural flow is love, just not the love perhaps we've been conditioned to think it is. So there's some more explorations of Abe in the final part of the reality game. So we're coming to a close soon. So thanks for watching, and thanks for continuing the explorations of the Abe communications. We'll connect again shortly. In the meantime, stay well, stay healthy, and above all, stay grounded. Cheers.